welcome everyone to our Vistatec Life Sciences in Focus podcast. Fascinating conversations with global life sciences experts. This is a space where we interview life sciences experts once a month, and I'm your host this month, Karen Kachik. So I'm super excited to talk with our guest today, Juan Daccach, who is an orthopedic surgeon and currently Vice President for Global Product Safety at Merz Aesthetics. Try saying that first thing in the morning when you haven't done a vocal warm-up. Juan has had a really interesting career that I will ask him to share about here, and I'm really grateful to have you here today, Juan. Please tell our listeners a little bit about your origin story and where you are now.
So first of all, thank you, Karen. I'm humbled and privileged to be here speaking with you. We met a couple of months ago, and you recognize energy when you feel it and see it. And I think it was me speaking on a presentation, and there was a connection. So I appreciate it when those energies combine. This is the result of it, and here we are, and I can't be more grateful and thankful for our lives to have crossed. So um my life story is I'll try to make it as short as possible, but it's rather I'm going to say interesting, a little bit complex, and a little bit out of the box. Born and raised in Colombia in South America. I just was one of those hyperactive kids at school, wanted to do everything, got drafted for the army, was sent to the Sinai Peninsula for 8 months, and then med school started in the University of Georgia. Being out of country, out of state was too expensive, so Colombia, med school, orthopedics, then joint reconstruction, fellowships, bunch of years, and getting ready for that life. And in 2012, I got an offer proposal from a multinational, very well-known company that required somebody with my background in the clinical area to join the specific joint reconstruction business under medical affairs. And at that time, I was married with one kid and I needed to make ends meet. I did not know what I was going into. Um, but it's all about risks and taking chances and seizing the opportunity that usually don't come twice. So made that decision, jumped on the boat, and entered the medical affairs program for joint reconstruction. Um, After 4 years of that in the same company, medical safety opened up, and I really wanted this position because I enjoy more of the safety thought process around products, which involves risk management and all of this stuff. And rather than the very important and very critical function for a company that is medical affairs, I consider myself better from the safety side of things. So I moved to the medical safety section for this company, lasted there 6 years, learned a lot. And then when the opportunity to grow was a little bit stunted, um, I opened up and fortunately was found by a recruiter that was looking for somebody to lead the safety space in aesthetics. And when they said aesthetics, I immediately said, what? Wait, aesthetics? Me? Orthopedics? What does that have to do? And then I realized that during my 10 years in this great company, I had learned a lot about the interactions of safety with other teams, cross-functional collaboration. And I had a message to bring forward. It was my life story, and I get a chance to do that throughout the year in many venues. And I was hired as the VP of Global Product Safety for Merz Aesthetics, and it's been just exhilarating. It's just been amazing, great group of people, family-owned business, looking over the safety of our aesthetic products. So that's as short as I could be. There's more to it though, but
Yeah,
in the
that was a lovely, concise version. I've heard a slightly longer version before. Yeah, you certainly had some, Colombia to the Sinai Peninsula to Georgia to back to Colombia to, you've had some interesting things
Indiana,
happen
you got
in
to
your
throw
life, haven't
Indiana,
you? And
Indiana
you
for
now
10 years.
live in,
So from Indiana, 10 years to
yeah,
Raleigh, 2.5 years, no,
Yeah.
a year and a half now here.
Yeah. So you live in Raleigh with your family. Yeah. So as you said, when we met, you were speaking at the World Drug Safety Congress in the autumn last year, and your energy did speak to me, and it was clear that you lead with gratitude, right? And I know that you're passionate about the whole person, and you're a certified coach as well. So how do you fit in certified coach, all that public speaking with an already very complex career? Talk to us a little bit about that. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I am a certified personal life executive and health coach. And I recently got certified as an Ikigai coach. And I do this for me to be a better person. And if I can use that to help others, well, I welcome that because that is my purpose. I think I've come to a conclusion that my purpose is to be open and helping others be better at what they do by maybe, guiding them in a sort of passenger seat position, just like the foundations of coaching, throughout whatever they're going through. So if I can help them, I'll be fulfilling my purpose. So how did it all start? It was interesting because when coaching came to be, I was I was a fellow in Colombia, and I was wearing my scrubs, my robe, working in the ER. Um, and I was going around reading about coaching, and people were laughing at me, not understanding what I was doing. How is an orthopedic surgeon? What is coaching? What are you going to coach? Soccer, football? And they didn't understand the concept, but it resonated with me because it was something that I, felt the calling for, to help me and to get better and differentiate myself in what I wanted to become, which was the orthopedic surgeon with joint reconstruction. So it all started with incorporating the coaching into the rehab of my patients, which was going to be completely new. Instead of sending the patient to do 10 movements of the leg up and down and this, I wanted to introduce dancing. I wanted to introduce hiking. I wanted to bring in so many other aspects. Well, that didn't happen. In parallel, my best friend got diagnosed with a very aggressive form of cancer, which is cancer from the appendix. And I wanted to go into coaching as well to help patients deal with circumstances that change the course of their life. So you can call it a diagnosis. You can call it something that happened that you didn't expect. You can call it some certain point of uncertainty. And a lot of people focus on, well, one of the biggest diagnoses out there, which is cancer. Uh, I like to call that, it was like a pilot for me, and it was very hard because my friend ended up passing. But it was exactly what I wanted to convert these learnings into, helping others navigate when their life changes secondary to a diagnosis. It doesn't have to be cancer. It could be hypertension. It could be diabetes. It can be grief. It can be whatever you want that changes your life. So that all went in parallel, and then things started ramping up in the world, in which coaching became a little bit oversaturated. And now you see coaching, I don't know, makeup coach, nail coach, hairstylist coach, all of these types of coaching that if they're using the fundamentals of it, that's great. But some of these things are just completely distorted of the original purpose of coaching per se. So I incorporated that. I also incorporated emotional intelligence that became a complete passion because again, I needed it to help me so I could help others. And that's how I incorporated that. And then it was just, a massive turn of events in my life using this, understanding how this actually helped me. And then life happens, and you see yourself using this on a day-to-day basis and understanding that not a lot of people understand that whatever was seen as a weakness back in the day now becomes a strength. And I got to thank the pandemic for that because you and I know that as soon as the pandemic hit, There was a lot of uncertainty in the world. So that's when I kind of put my foot in the door and gave some, talks online, and a lot of people started understanding that you do need your emotional intelligence to navigate uncertainty. And that's how it started blending in. And then I incorporate that to everything in my life. Whatever I do, I bring that forward. And a lot of people are resonating with the fact that it is helpful to deliver your purpose, to deliver your goal, to meet your goals and objectives in a company, in a team, et cetera, et cetera. So again, long-winded answer, but it's your fault because you're opening the door. So I'm just
No, that's what I wanted to hear that story. I wanted our listeners to hear that story. It's not long-winded at all. It's remarkable. And I, because so often, I'm generalizing, of course, but so often we hear about people going through a medical event and the doctor just being very dry, or not there for them. Let's say we're talking about bedside manner, perhaps, or looking at a whole person rather than a cause or an effect of a moment in that person's life that the medical team is dealing with. So that's I mean, it's an unusual story you're telling, at least unusual to me, and that's why I think it's worth sharing with everyone else.
so I'll give
Yeah,
you I'll give you a parallel.
yeah,
So you know that when you say that when you meet your significant other and you technically move forward into marrying that person, you marry their family. You know how you say that,
yes,
right? For me, when you are a physician, you marry the patient's family,
yeah,
right? You cannot avoid or putting aside what the family members of that patient are feeling outside of the ER. So taking 30 seconds to go out and introduce yourself and say, I'm going to be treating your patient. This is what's going on. This is what's happening. Answering with, I like to say, optimistic realism, right? Not hiding anything, being frontal, but being optimistic, makes a difference. Because at the end of the day, if the outcome medically is not what you expected, and I saw this, they
yes,
came back still and thanked me for taking the time to explain what was going on. And this dehumanizing of the medical world is obviously influenced by so many factors. But it all comes down to the person to start making those small changes, swimming against the current of what the trend is and disrupting the trend and being human. So that's kind of the parallel to how I always wanted to differentiate myself from mainstream and disrupt in a hopefully good way.
yeah. Well, sounds like a very positive disruption to me, and I hope people experience more and more of that. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's remarkable. So you've turned so the pandemic, of course, yes, the whole world was experiencing this change, this uncertainty. And you seem to have found a sweet spot, a balance with your, if you like, your day-to-day job and your whole person outreach. You seem to have found an ideal balance that many people don't find. So that's something that struck me when I met you. Um, yeah, so
So
thank you.
this balance that you mentioned is the more you look for it, the less it shows up. And when you least expect it, it's a nirvana moment. And when the pandemic hit and everybody was running around in circles, for whatever odd reason, and I'm not a visionary of any sort or futuristic guru or anything, but I knew what the world was going to start feeling because it's just this massive global moment of uncertainty that makes you, without knowing what to do in the moment, it makes you vulnerable. And there is nothing more than joins people together than vulnerability. So weakness, flip it, strength. Negative, learn, strength. Know, show, and flow with whatever life gives you. And if you're able to help others navigate through it, you're winning. You're at the end of the day satisfied with the process, maybe not the outcome, but you feel a little bit better knowing that you have helped others understand what is going on, even though you may not have 100% knowledge exactly what was going on. But, deconstructing the whole significance of what was going on and having empathy with people and understanding that they were living in this small room apartment with 3 kids, 2 dogs, 3 jobs, and, computers everywhere and navigating this and all of that. I mean, people tend to forget what happened 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And it was massive, massive disruption of life. And now we get to learn from it. Now we get to see the output of it, and now we get to navigate it.
Yes, I slightly it's a tangent, but we had one of those difficult experiences that you talk about, the life-changing things happened to us in 2019. It was
Mm.
to do with the murder of a friend. That's what it was. And when the pandemic hit, suddenly that was nothing. We'd gone through a trauma on our own, my husband and I, in 2019. Suddenly everyone was in it together in 2020. That made it so much easier because what we were going through was suddenly this global event. So you do learn from those life-changing moments that happen. But yes, just interesting that I came into the pandemic and it really, I mean, sure, it was sad, it was tiresome, it was of concern in lots of areas. But for us, because everyone was going through it, it was suddenly it was a piece of cake compared with having had to go through something on
Yeah,
our
and
own.
outside of maybe the listeners or viewers that actually lost family
Yes,
members or friends to the pandemic, by all means, I'm not trying to say that that was positive at all. I mean, I just want to make
yes,
that very clear,
yes,
because I lost friends. I have friends that lost their family members, and it was horrendous to live through that. But if you have the capacity to shield in a good way, not disconnect, but shield, uh, and be able to recognize what's going on, elaborate on it, put a name to it, label it so you can know exactly what you're working on. It makes the process easier. I remember my daughter's, school from home, right? Everything shut down. We literally shut down for a year. We took that approach. And they were kind of complaining, and I'm glad I didn't have teenagers at that time because I can't imagine their proms and their last year of high school. All of that, it's just right. It's oof,
that was my family. But
right.
carry on.
But I had younger kids, and they were kind of, upset because they had to stay home and everything. But we made the best out of it. And I told them, I remember maybe 3 or 4 weeks in, I told them, you will see when this is over, and it will be over, that we're going to miss the moments that we are having together as a family in this household. The karaoke nights, the game nights, the movie nights, all of this. And funny enough, as soon as it was over, everybody went back to whatever they were doing. One day, my oldest daughter come back and said, I miss our karaoke nights. And it's like, well, now it's something that makes you stronger because you learned from it. So how are we going to incorporate that into our life? And again, for the people that lost family members or friends, my heart still thinks about them because it was just so sudden. You had people that went in the hospital and you couldn't see them again, and you would never saw them again. So it's tough, but people tend to forget the criticality of the moment. And with all this, political and different lines of thought that happen to happen now, it drives you away from what was happening 5 years ago, which was just a critical in our lives.
Yes, absolutely. Um, Yes, what comes to my mind also is people who couldn't hold funerals in the normal way.
Oh, horrible.
The not being able to say goodbye to people
That was
was
horrible. And
was a piece.
I'm not a fan of reading the news because they're usually negative. And I am a highly sensitive person. I get affected with what happens to somebody miles and miles and miles and miles away from me. When I see others suffer, I tend to get affected. And it has been a challenge for me. That's why I went to emotional intelligence training, is to try to become emotionally intelligent. Because I'm certified in emotional intelligence doesn't mean I'm emotionally intelligent. It's I'm far from it, but it gives me the basis to understand and course correct my emotions and understand them so I can use them to my benefit. Um, so, the example you put, I remember when they were making these beds that turned into coffins. I don't know if you remember cardboard beds that they would lay the patient there. And if the patient passed, then they would just kind of like close and ship out. And then you would see all the images. To my initial point, I started watching the news because I had to, because when you don't know what's going to happen, at least from a medical perspective, you were going to have to be making decisions based on ignorance because nobody knew what's going to happen. So I had to make decisions, at least for my immediate family, for my wife and my two daughters, to better understand what was going to be that best decision. So I had to look at the news. I had to look at data. I had to look at everything. I like to look at trends. And it was scary. And one of the hardest things in life, Karen, for me as a parent, is having to show your toughness when deep down inside you're nervous, you're stressed. So parenting comes with imposter syndrome too. It's not just, your office job that has 70% of people imposter syndrome. Being a dad is also sometimes the feeling of, am I doing this right? I've never done this before. You know, tornado warning, get into a closet. My daughter's crying, and here I am, scared S-less of the tornado, but, you know, doing that, walk
That
of
thing that
life,
parents do, right? That thing that parents
right?
do when they're being strong for their.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, now you're dealing with those teenage girls, aren't you? And I wish you
Not
well with.
yet. Well, one just turned 13, but she has been 13 ever since she was 9. So,
All right, let's turn back to medical devices for a little bit. So usually I would often ask a question about what's new in the space. So there's obviously there are always new regulations, and we can still call AI new, I suppose. What do you see as new in medical devices this year? What's on your mind in that front?
sure.
What's
And
gone?
I'm sure our conversation is going to go in so many tangents that it's going to be edited, but it's part of the fun. I take advantage of this. So I thank you again for this opportunity. So what's new? And I think um, I don't want to call AI new anymore, but I do want to call AI, or the incorporation of AI, as something that should be happening now. If you haven't started studying or thinking how to fit AI in your day to day, you're behind, right? Because if you're still going against the current, it's going to affect you because the current is a tsunami of things. I had another podcast recently where we talked about the elephant in the room, and my recent post on LinkedIn talks about it being, will AI take over humans? And I'm not laughing at that anymore. Just today, there is this brand that is offering for about $100 a month AI that would do and manage all of your social media for you. Everything, LinkedIn, Instagram, everything. And then it's not only the artificial intelligence, it's how they learn from it, the whole algorithm thing, how it replicates. Understanding that is what's new in our life. But understanding the fact that it is running at a pace that not even regulations can keep up with is what's dangerous. Understanding that every invention in the world has somebody looking at it as a potential weapon. And if we address that or don't address it and leave it as an elephant in the room, we're going to be facing this, because it's not a matter of if, but when, retrospectively, if we're still here. And I don't want to be dramatic or anything, but I am a worst case scenario person, because medicine, they teach you to think ahead in order for you to prevent what can happen. So you have to think of that worst case scenario. In safety, you have to think what's the worst that can happen. In risk management, you have to think of the worst thing that can happen. In escalations, right? What is the worst that can happen? So my mind is set up that way. And I'm always thinking, all right, AI, machine learning, Worst case scenario, we're living the Terminator world. I mean, can machines take over? Why not? So understanding that now, that's what can't be new anymore. But incorporating and navigating with AI, complementing what you do with AI to your benefit and the benefit of others, I think that's the new thing right now. So if you're old school and you're going to be stuck to that old schoolness, that's fine, but you have to be open to change. Just like the internet, just like the, airplane, just like the Industrial Revolution, right? It happened and it did not go away. It even got better. So understanding that life has changed and it will continue to change and not letting go of your humanity, that's what I think is a new concept to incorporate in your day to day. In medical devices, well, it's about the AI tools that you can use. It's about you're going to get how I like to think about how are you going to get better at what you do? How are we going to be safer? How is our quality going to get better? How are our processes going to get better? And there's data already on how much time you save, how much efficient you become. But then the question is, what are you going to do with that time you're saving? Where are you going to invest that time? So it's all about flipping the negative to the positive and making it work. So that for me is what's new, is understanding, incorporating, assimilating, and using it to your advantage. And
Fabulous.
and something that is old but will be new is that regulations will change every day.
There's nothing new under the sun, right?
Oh, yes, but I just hope that we could be having a conversation where there's a worldwide regulatory body one
Mm,
day in our life. Maybe we don't get to live it, but
yeah.
I just wish that there would be a set of regulations that would be universal, but there isn't. So here we are.
Yes, yes, that would make things so much simpler for so many of us, wouldn't it? It absolutely would. So, Juan, we could obviously talk for a long time, but we should come to an end. Before we go, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience? Maybe an event you'll be at, or a reading recommendation, or whatever, anything you'd like to share.
So, couple of things. So, usually during the year, I attend a couple of meetings focused on medical devices because that's the area I believe I'm proficient in. I've never been in pharma. I know how pharma has been adapted to medical devices, which I think puts me in a position to be able to understand the differences, but understand and get proficient, efficient, and dedicated to medical devices. And now we're entering a world of combination products in which we're combining, being redundant, pharma and a device. So there's a lot of new things, back to your previous question, in that space. So during the year, I'll be attending a couple of medical device conferences in Boston, and in some of my teams will be in Europe. And then we have the World Drug Safety Congress that should be called, as I say there, World Drug Device
Drug
Combination
device combination.
Cosmetics AI Technology Safety Congress, because I think